Why are you or we August Wild? Why? You know, selfishly, I want to be a voice for the voiceless. You know, growing up, I felt some days I still feel like I'm unheard and
Mm-hmm.
dismissed. If I'm being honest, music was the only place that I could feel not by other people, but by something.
Right.
I could feel heard by not other people, but something. You know, it's hard for me to explain sometimes. But I've spoken with people who feel the same way about music in general, or movies, books, whatever. They go to these things
Right.
that make them feel like they're understood, right? So I want to be a voice for those people who feel like they can't be heard or understood anywhere else. I
Okay.
want to share my story with other people in hopes that I could save them from making decisions that I've made. You know, decisions I still pay the price for. All right. There's a lot to unpack there, but let's build a foundation. When you say the price, what do you mean by that? What price are you paying? FOMO, or if you don't know what FOMO means, it's fear of missing out. But for me, instead of fear, it's feeling. You know, the feeling of missing out. The price I pay is this constant feeling of missing out. I
Right.
feel like I'm missing out on the lives of people that I love. I feel like I'm missing out on opportunities, missing out on new friendships, and a whole bunch more. But I feel like I'm missing out on those things because of the mistakes that I made in my life when I was younger. You know,
Okay.
and in my album, Birthday Boy Volume 30, I address that feeling
Whoa,
in
whoa,
order
whoa.
to let it go. All right, you're jumping ahead here with the promo, but I like it. Let's take the step by step. I just find interesting your use of the word price. It means I feel like you're saying worth, but it sounds like regret. Would you agree that the price you're referring to is more like guilt and emotional than it is like a transactional consequence? Like if that's the case, how does that shape you? How? You're right.
Okay.
You're right. It's emotional. It's guilt, but it's also frustration and fear. You know, I've spent so much time looking backward, wishing I could undo things, but
Right.
it's just like it shaped me in ways that I don't always like. You know, it's held me back from being fully present. You know,
Okay.
instead of building relationships and chasing dreams, I've spent so much time thinking. You know, like what if I did this differently?
Right.
You know,
It
it's
sounds
exhausting.
it sounds like you've been carrying a lot on your shoulders, and it's understandable. Like, but regret could be a powerful force. Could you walk me through that? Like,
You
what?
know, when I first started making music, it was like a place where I could keep my true identity. You know,
Mhm.
I trapped myself there. You could call it a diary, I guess, but it's like Jumanji in a way if you ever
Right.
seen that movie. But you know, once people close to me discovered that I was good at rapping, it became this redeeming quality for the guy that I was pretending to be, right?
Right.
And that made me rap about things that I thought people wanted to hear. Those people wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then life happens. I didn't take my music career seriously, and one day I wake up a 24-year-old man with nothing to show for my true passion.
Nothing.
And
That's powerful.
the people that once this is the one that hurts the most. The people that once believed in me
Mm-hmm.
started looking at me like they don't believe in me anymore. And knowing that it was my fault and feeling like I wasted my potential, I started writing my music to address that guilt, address that pain, and restart my story where I left off
Right.
a long time ago. You know, but to the people who love me, it feels like I'm bringing up the past when in reality,
Yeah.
I'm addressing things that I didn't address properly the first time. It's therapy in a way.
Okay. So since you mentioned therapy, like, can you talk about a defining moment when you realize like this is more than just a hobby? Like, this is how I confront my past and shape my future. Like, how does that shift the way you approach your music or create music?
It's honestly difficult for me to point to one moment and say, "Oh, this is where it all began." You know, if I'm being honest, for a good amount of my life, there was this constant theme that I was unable. There was this
Right.
constant theme in my life that I was unable to be relatable to anybody, and everybody that I spoke to was like different. Um, if you know what I mean, like they thought I was different, but
Okay.
not in a cool way. So anytime that I try to talk to somebody, it was either met with resistance, misunderstanding, or silence. But on a public platform, you know, I'm not
Right.
going to sit here and say it was bullying, but it was definitely very uncomfortable.
Okay.
The only place I could go and feel like I was heard, like I said earlier, was my music. You know, so I started writing poems, and I needed to get these thoughts out of my head. You know, because
Right.
if I can't express the way I feel,
Mm-hmm.
I will literally go crazy.
All right. So I'm curious, how does that sense of isolation and difference actually shape the sound or style of your music? Like, do you ever wonder what the world would look like if you didn't, or if you felt more accepted? Like anything at all? Any thoughts on that? Like,
We felt more
when it comes
accepted.
to shaping music, right? I guess sound, I would actually tell you that it doesn't shape my music or sound for that matter. Specifically when it comes to the sonic part, right?
Right.
I often tell people who listen to my music that I am by no means this musical expert,
Right.
or nor do I claim to be one. I don't go into the booth and say, "Oh, you got to EQ this and you got to do that." I learn these things as I go. Um, I have always just been someone who's expressing his feelings. That's all I've been.
Right.
I just happen to do it through hip hop. I happen to do it through rap. I guess you could say that it musically, you can say that it draws me more to like boom bap rap or things that
Right.
have like kind of like an
Emotional?
emotional sound
Yeah,
to it.
yeah.
But to your second question, if I grew up feeling more accepted, I most likely would not be an artist. I'm not gonna
Wow.
lie to you.
Heavy
But that's
statement.
not the world that I live in,
Mhm.
and that's why I continue to be an artist while it's painful.
Right.
I know that I was put here on this earth to speak for people who can't speak for themselves.
All right. So with that being said, I'm
As
curious
crazy as
again.
that sounds.
That does sound crazy. Does carrying that responsibility ever feel like a burden? Like, how do you balance telling your own story and like telling other people's stories? Like as best as you can, of course. You know.
Does carrying it ever feel like a burden?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being honest, I wasn't always honest. I
All
wasn't
right.
always authentic. If anything, it was the opposite for a very long time. I felt trapped in this body. Some days I still feel trapped in this person. The only way for me to escape was through poetry at first, and then it later turned into music when I was about 14 years old.
Right.
That was the only way I could be free. But in the real world, my lack of acceptance, from myself and other people, turned me into somebody that would do anything to be accepted, even if it meant
Right.
putting myself down for other people's entertainment.
Okay.
So responsibility doesn't feel like a burden to me. It feels like an honor. I'm not going to tell you that I was poor growing up because I never went without a meal, but my family did struggle to make ends meet for some time. And
Okay.
that, like, the way I correlate that is there are people in this world who feel how I felt, and they don't have a family
Right.
to help them out. They don't even
Okay.
have like anybody on their behalf to speak for them. So to
Yeah.
me, it's an honor to do this. It's not a burden.
It's powerful that you acknowledge that. So, was there a defining moment or realization that pushed you from like inauthentic expression to genuine self reflection? And like, how does that new perspective influence your goals as an artist and as a person moving forward? Does it have any impact at all, or am I bugging?
This one's a little heavy.
There's
For
got to be
this
a
one, there
moment.
actually is a defining moment.
Okay, there you go.
July 7th, 2018. The night before that day, I tried taking my own life by drinking a lot of alcohol, like a lot,
Yeah.
half a handle and I think like 8 beers, something like that. But the point was, I was using alcohol as a crutch for my feelings. Um, and on top of that, my drunken mistakes throughout college from 2014 to 2017 would like serve as entertainment for people, and I mistakenly took entertainment as value for myself since I did not see any value in myself for a very long time.
Right.
I would drink every single weekend, and I'm talking like 5 days out of 7 I was drunk.
Wow.
But
it's a lot. A lot of days.
July 7th, 2018, I look back on my entire life, not just the drinking portion, the entire life, and I wondered why did I never stand my ground? When it came to my authenticity, when it came to my identity and the things that I feel, I wondered why I search for validation in everybody other than myself.
Yeah.
Why do I listen to everybody calling me weird or saying that my dreams are unattainable and trying to fit? I was trying to fit into what their standards were.
Right.
I did all that only to be left with nothing.
Hmm.
That emptiness literally almost killed me
Wow.
the day before July 7th. So
It's heavy.
I made this commitment to myself to be honest, to be real, to be authentic.
Mhm.
And it did cause a lot of problems in my personal life from 2018 to
to this day still.
Right.
I ruined a lot of relationships and friendships that way. When people, because when people only know you as one thing,
Right.
and you hide your feelings about the way they treat you or just the way your stance on anything, they're not just going to suddenly be open and accepting to the way you feel now
That's
because you
facts.
suddenly had to change your heart and you changed your life. We only know
That's
you
facts.
as this person. I probably came across as rude, fake, and I can accept that. I'm not, but I can accept if they feel that way. So going forward, acceptance and accountability are the only ways that I can survive and keep myself sane as a person.
Right.
As an artist, I just have to keep expressing what I feel, and if I don't express how I feel, then I'm going to go down the path I went down before, and I'm not so sure that if I go down that path, God's going to spare me the next time.
Well, so first of all, that's a powerful turning point. But what I want to know is like, how do you keep yourself accountable on a day-to-day basis, right? Is there a routine, a mindset, certain people in your life that help you stay true to yourself and like avoid slipping back into that pattern, like the same way you described it, or how do you get the job?
My
done?
wife keeps me accountable. I'm not even gonna dance around it. My
Nice.
wife, God bless her soul, she keeps me accountable without like directly keeping me accountable, if that makes sense. Like I mentioned before, I'd gotten so used to doing things for acceptance that I built some like a somewhat positive trait of reading the room, right? But my wife, she's very organized and structured, and she's the most secure person I know.
Right.
I am one of the most insecure people I know. If you're insecure and don't have accountability, you have the potential to be a toxic person, and I don't want to be toxic to my wife. She motivates me in ways that she can't understand, and I oftentimes have a hard time explaining without music.
Man, she sounds like an incredible person. You mentioned that you struggle to articulate your feelings for her outside of your music. Does that influence the way you write or record? Are there specific moments in your lyrics that you dedicate something to her, or you like address her specifically, like anything like that at all?
It's funny you asked that question. It's funny you asked that question because I actually asked that question to a friend of mine, Justin.
Really?
Shout out Justin. And he told me that my music started sounding better when my wife came into my life. Obviously, she was my girlfriend at the time, but it's even funnier because she's like not this demanding person. She's never heard anything I've done when it comes to music or seen in my videos or listened to any of my podcasts and told me don't talk about this and don't rap about that. I have so many songs where I talk about past relationships, intimacy with other people. And, I could go on, but she doesn't hear them and just get critical or insecure. All she does is support. She's supportive without condition. Obviously, I got to be a good man,
right?
But
right.
that's not a condition to me.
Okay.
She believes in me, and that allows me to make music that I believe in. I feel like that's what's really changed. It allows me to deliver my lyrics differently, deliver my punchlines better. My bars are better now in ways that I believe she put that back into my spirit when it comes to making music. And yes,
right.
I have multiple songs where I directly address her impact on me. I have a EP out right now. It's called Mr. and Mrs. Forever. It's just 2 songs. And I dedicated that to our wedding day. And I have a song called You'll Always Have My Heart with Zay. Shout out Zay. Dedicated to our engagement day.
Shout out Zay.
So I talk about her on the album as well, Birthday Boy Volume 30.
So let's talk about the album. So the name Birthday Boy Volume 30 gives off like a coming of age vibe. Like turning 30 is a big milestone, right? Like, isn't it a bit on the nose to like call an album by your birthday?
I can certainly see that.
Yeah, like some people could see that self-indulgent. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you think?
I would not disagree that it is self-indulgent. I have a podcast series on YouTube. It's called Becoming August, Killing the Narcissist, or whatever the acronym of all three of all those letters.
BAK.
That is what is on YouTube if you go on my YouTube page.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what I do on that podcast is I slowly build this story of how I became this narcissist that only cared about his feelings and didn't consider other people's feelings. Did not consider other people's feelings. I wasn't always that way. So I know I'm exaggerating a little bit by saying I'm a narcissist, and you got to get like
just a little bit
diagnosed for that. But what I'm getting to is I can see the perception that I'm a narcissist because I mainly talk about the way I feel in my music instead of the way other people feel, So backing up a little bit, I started the Birthday Boy series when I turned 28 because I felt like my poetry, I felt like it was poetic and that it spoke to that narcissism, if you will.
Okay.
And turning 30 is a big deal, you know, not just to me, but to a lot of people out there.
Right.
This album really helped me get rid of all the hatred that was in my heart that I held through my 20s. So
Really?
I don't have to have that hate in my heart in my 30s. You know, the
Okay.
only way for me to grow is by letting go of this hatred.
Okay, so here's a little bit of pushback. If you're dedicating an entire album and podcast series to dissecting old wounds, like, aren't you still dwelling on them in that sense? Like, how do you balance reflecting on your past without letting it define your future? Like, how do you do that?
I think that saying I'm still dwelling on something because I'm addressing it, it's, to be honest with you, it's a lazy take. And I think it's an easy take. You know, it's easy to say that I'm still dwelling on something, and harder to ask yourself if I even addressed it properly the first time or whenever it came up in my life. You know,
Wow.
the truth is, I have been hiding the way I feel for a very long time because
Okay.
at some point in my 20s, saying what I felt only lost me friends, and losing friends made me feel more alone. You know, I grew up in the 90s, you know,
Right.
to a young Hispanic father. And, you know, that's where, you know, he was taught and tried to teach me that boys don't cry, boys don't have feelings, right? That's where I came from. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that that's something I live with, you know. People
Right.
think I'm sensitive, and it's certainly true, but
Okay.
I haven't even scratched the surface for most of my life. I haven't even scratched the surface when it comes to addressing the way I feel about
Wow.
things, not just in my life, but the world in general. You know,
Mm.
I choose to do that now because I learned to accept myself.
Right.
And, you know, there's a song on the album, it's called Rid My Heart. And I
You mentioned
say
it before.
directly, I could not move on if I don't address these things.
Right.
So I balance reflecting on the past without letting it define my present or future by
Yeah.
keeping it in the music.
Okay.
You know, outside of the music, I don't think about these things.
Hmm.
Anybody who talks to me in person these days knows that I'm not bothered by the past.
Mhm.
Well,
I mean,
I'm only bothered
okay.
by it when it gets incorrectly brought up by the people that I love. That's the only
Okay.
time I get bothered by it. But I don't think about it
So-
on a day-to-day basis, you know, contrary to what some people might think.
Okay, so you say you're not bothered by the past unless someone else brings it up, but you're creating a whole album about it, right? Like, what do you say to listeners who might feel like you're pulling them back, or to your friends who feel like you're pulling them back into something they moved on from? Do you ever worry about laying it all out in your music, or like, how do you feel about
If they
that?
say that to me, I would tell them that's a good point,
Okay.
because it's a good point. There's
It is.
nothing more to say to that. It's nobody's fault but my own that I chose to live a lie for so long.
Right.
It was selfish of me to live that lie because it didn't give my friends the opportunity to get to know the real me and how I really feel about things. And
Right.
I'm going to live with that forever, you know?
Mhm.
But with that being said, this is in general. If we call each other friends, then we should both respect the way the other person feels, regardless of if it's right or not. You know, I respect anybody who has the feeling that I'm like pulling them into something that they might feel like they moved on from, or pulling them into something that they don't even want to be a part of. You know?
Right.
But I would hope in that same breath, they would respect that I can't move on from something that truly bothered me unless I address it. And the only way that I've learned to address things is in my music.
Right.
When I try to address things in person, I kind of get dismissed because I'm sensitive. So put it in the music, you know.
Yeah.
I leave out names,
Well, that's
you know,
good.
because I had to learn to write my songs in a way that were more general and relatable, you know, unless somebody needs to be clearly addressed,
Yeah.
directly addressed.
Okay. Well, fair
But to
enough.
answer your question, yes. I worry about reopening wounds all the time because, again, contrary to what popular belief, contrary to what people might believe or think of me, I think about the way I make my friends feel all the time because
Wow.
I love them.
All right. So, do you ever wonder if there's a line that you won't cross in your music out of respect for those relationships, or do you feel like complete transparency, even if it stings, is like necessary for the art that you're trying to create? Like, what do you feel is the most
Complete transparency.
Okay.
Complete transparency. Like I mentioned before, I lived a lie for so long. You know, I can't do that again. And I also mentioned that while I did not grow up poor, we by no means had an easy life. You know, the food we got was all we got, you know, and when you grow up in survival mode like that, it's all or nothing. It's black or white. So that's why I'm sober. I can't just have one beer or one shot, right? So going back to your question, if I'm not completely transparent, I might end up lying out of habit, out of an old habit. Um, but still, it's a habit nonetheless. I don't know. I don't know that to be true though,
Right.
because you know, since 2018, I haven't lived that way anymore. But living this way, being transparent, being honest like that, it gets me in trouble, and it makes
Yeah.
enemies out of old friends all the time
I
to
bet.
this day.
I bet
I'm
it
not
does.
trying to, but it happens.
Hmm.
But with that being said, this is for the betterment of the people around me, you know, people who love me for me and not the security my insecurity gave them.
Okay. Well, let's be honest. I like that.
Bar, I know.
I know. Yeah. Let's be honest though. Some people don't want transparency or that level of transparency. Are you prepared for backlash when it comes to like sharing that kind of unfiltered truth, or like how do you walk that line? Is it always all or nothing?
Everybody wants the truth. They just want it. Everybody wants the truth. They just want it delivered a certain way.
Okay.
You know, I have no problem adjusting the way I speak, depending on who I'm speaking to. And,
Fair enough.
You know, I won't I won't do this if I'm not. I would not be able to do this if I wasn't fully transparent. You know, I respect people. You know, because at one point in my life, again, what did I do? I stayed away from people because I ran from the truth.
Right.
You know, if they don't want to be around me because I speak the truth, I have to respect that because I did the same thing. You know,
Right.
I would hope that if you're a fan of me, you're a fan of embracing and facing the truth, even if it's hard or if it's easy. You know, I respect the decision to stay away from me though. You know, because I've learned not everybody has to like me.
That's honest. I want to go back to the album for a little bit, right? Turning 30 is a big pivotal age, right? How do you feel this album captures that personal turning point in your life or in everyone's life in
I
general?
feel like a lot of people who turn 30 that I've been around at least, you know, they start dreading their birthdays going forward, you know, and I hate that, you know. I feel like your birthday is the bare minimum when it comes to celebrating yourself.
I agree.
It's literally your New Year's, right? The world gets to celebrate a new year and a new celebration of life at the beginning of the year, end of December, start of January. You get to do that on your birthday, you know. So for this album, I had the personal approach of letting go of ideas and concepts that I held on to throughout my 20s that honestly started growing roots in my consciousness from when I was born, probably. But I can't let go of something, like I've said throughout this interview, I can't let go of something unless I address it. So on this album is me addressing the things that caused me the most pain in my life.
Right.
But in a way that's general for, you know, and relatable to anybody going through significant change.
Okay, so you mentioned it's about addressing and letting go of things, right? How do you strike that balance between working through your deeply personal struggles while like keeping the music general and relatable for people?
You got to get to the root of the issue.
Okay.
You know, if I have a problem with somebody in my life, I really have to think about like what is our problem. If you boil it down, you get to the root.
Right.
You know, everybody has their own specifics. We all have different problems, but everybody has the same root cause or same multiple root causes if you think about it. So what I have to do is I have to think deeply from both people's perspective and form my song from there. I have to think beyond what a person is doing and put myself in their own frame of mind and look at myself through their eyes. Then I have to think about how I would respond in a way. I think I have to think about the way that I would respond to them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I'm good at it, but I certainly try my best.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of personal themes on this album. Like, now that it's done, what do you hope that listeners like take away from Birthday Boy Volume 30? Especially people struggling with your similar
There's a
issues.
few different ways for me to look at that specifically. You know, when it comes to what I want people to take away from this album. In their own personal lives, I would hope that this album inspires transparency in their interpersonal relationships or even within themselves, you know. I would hope that people who are afraid to confront somebody or a situation or whatever it is, you know, because they're afraid to confront these things because they don't want to lose friends or lose social status. I hope listening to this album I hope they listen to this album and they feel the confidence it takes to accept the consequences of standing up for yourself.
Right.
You know, you might end up alone on the other side of what you need to say. But if it's really going to bring you peace, it is what it is. You know,
Right.
it's not so bad to be alone. But I would also hope that before they go and say whatever they're about to say,
Yeah.
they look at themselves and truly reflect on their own accountability in any given situation.
Right.
You know, you have to ask yourself, could I be the person in the wrong?
Yeah.
Because if you are the person in the wrong, then saying what you're about to say, saying what's on your mind,
Yeah.
won't actually bring you peace. It'll just bring more problems.
Facts.
Finally, I hope that this album, when it comes to
Yes.
me as an artist, I would hope that people could respect how personal and vulnerable I am
Vulnerable. Yeah.
when it comes to any track that they listen to, because I feel like most of the artists that we love in society throughout the history,
Yeah.
you know, and the ones that stay around for a long time, timeless, if you will,
Yeah.
are the ones who put their true life experiences and the way they felt about them in their music. You know,
Right.
that's the kind of artist that I want to be, and frankly, it's the only kind of artist I know how to be.
So that makes sense to me.
But you know, considering all the introspection you poured into this project, how does Birthday Boy Volume 30 reflect on the artist you see yourself becoming in like 5 or 10
I'm
years?
gonna sound like a huge.
I'm gonna sound like a nerd when it comes to, but I'm just gonna sound like a nerd. It is what it is. But
Yeah.
I love this. I love this question. Outside
Okay.
of the sonics, like how the music sounds, Birthday Boy Volume 30 has this theme, right? You'll notice on the cover there are two versions of me in the same room.
Right.
One guy who's wearing a black coat and black shirt. Another guy who's wearing a tank top.
Right.
One represents accountability and facing the truth. The other represents pent up hatred and aggression.
Okay.
The guy in the tank top wants to be the guy in the coat. The guy in the coat cannot exist in the real world unless the guy in the tank top works through his issues.
Okay.
You know, I saw a lot. You know, when if you look at my music videos, you'll understand that theme. You know,
Right.
Leave It All Behind, For Me, 1830, Back Doing Me. You know,
Yeah.
the day the album drops, I have a music video for Rid My Heart with this same theme. You know,
Mhm.
the point I'm getting across, I'll break it down for you. I would hope that people could appreciate that I bring artistry into this.
Right.
I'm not just a guy who like says, "Hey, I listen to music. Come listen." No, like I put everything I can into this. I work tirelessly for
Yeah.
this thing. I really care about this, you know. So everything is connected to everything when it comes to my music, my albums, and
So
all the projects that I do.
So then how important are those music videos and other visual elements to telling your story? Like, do you see them as essential for fans to like fully grasp the album? Like emotionally, conceptually, like all of that? Or like what are you thinking?
The music videos, yeah, and visual elements are probably more important than the songs themselves when it comes to grasping the concept of the album.
Right.
Obviously, the music is the music. You know, if you watch the videos in the order of the track list,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to understand that it's all the videos are connected. All the songs are connected. The lyrics are connected. You know,
Right.
I also think that it's important to show your personality through your visuals. And
Okay.
because I'm expressing the truth and transparency, you see videos where I'm like clearly in my own house.
Right.
I'm clearly in my own garage. I'm clearly at the park. Like
They're nice though.
several cities over or something. You know, it's
Mhm.
not this fancy production where I show you a car that I don't actually own or a mansion that I don't actually live in. You know, I'm not selling fake. I'm selling the truth.
You know, there's a lot of
You want to call it selling.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there in the world today. So like how do you stay grounded in telling your truth? Like does it ever feel like being genuine is at odds with the way society works or like
You know, I appreciate that question because
yeah.
as an artist who is trying to make this his professional career, I used to hate that these fake things were what got people opportunities that I wasn't getting. Just being honest with you, I was a hater for sure.
Right.
You know, they were getting these opportunities to change their families' lives based on lies. But
Mhm.
the older I get, the more I realize that's always been the case.
Mm.
You know, we go to the movie theater to watch stories that never happened in places that don't exist,
Right.
conversations that flow smoother in a movie than they do in real life, right?
Right.
The Lion King does not exist in the real world, right? There are no such thing as talking lions, right? But that does not mean that
That's
it's fake. You know, so I can't blame society for valuing image over substance.
Mm.
However, I do feel like the world today
Mm.
is starting to idolize, keyword idolize, fake personas and
Right.
fake lives in a way that's like unhealthy.
Okay.
And I think that's an issue. You know, it's okay to be a super fan of something
Right.
that might not be true, you know, but it's very dangerous to make those things your role model.
Right.
Right. That's just my opinion. You know, I have been
Right.
struggling with, like, when it comes to this music thing or trying to make this my career, I've been struggling with keeping my integrity and the truth, but also making something that's entertaining for people. You know, I struggle with that every single day.
Yeah.
I think to myself, if I could just lie, then
just lie.
if I could just lie in my song, like say, oh yeah, you know, I catch bodies, I do this, or whatever the case may be,
right?
Then it would make getting life-changing opportunities so much easier. That's what I think. I could be wrong.
So,
but you know, what the thing that wakes me up from that thought is realizing that I was not put on this earth to sell lies. Like, because if I was, it would have worked by now.
So then
I used to do it back in the day.
Okay, so has seeing people succeed on a facade ever made you like question your own path, like, or resent people who choose that route? Like, how do you find peace in being honest at times? You know, like with the fakers who are reaping the rewards?
For sure.
You know, like, does that hurt?
For sure.
It bothers you?
Not just question my own path, but question like my own worth. You know, like
right.
It brings me a lot, and I mean a lot of doubt when it comes to like trying to make it in this industry or in this business, however you want to put it, in this life. You know, and I want to be clear. Not everybody's a liar, right? You know, I grew up with my friends watching music videos of like singers with fancy cars or expensive houses, and you know, when you're a civilian and you're just watching a music video, you're like, damn, this person has a life that I wish I had. You know,
same
then
here.
You start to strive for those things, and you become upset with yourself when you don't get it. You know, but the more I learn about how these things really work, you know, the more I learn about the industry, like specifically entertainment, I learned that a lot of these things that we see in the music videos, they were like rented or leased, you know, in order to enhance a brand or a meaning behind the song, maybe tell a story. Like I said with the whole movie situation, right? To me, there isn't anything wrong with that until people only want to focus on that.
Okay.
And they don't leave any room for other artists who might not want to take that route, you know. I wouldn't go so far as calling people fake just because they follow that route. You know, they have a job to do the same way I have a job to do. You know, they got loved ones to feed the same way I got loved ones to feed. I can't be mad at somebody I can't be mad at someone who does that. I can't hate somebody for that. You know, it's only frustrating for me when I'm around people who are outside of the entertainment industry and they believe that my music videos or my songs aren't successful or aren't good because they compare it to these other high-end productions.
Right.
So these other high-profile artists.
So then how do you stay confident in your approach? Like, especially when the people around you, fans, friends, or industry people, like, expect these high production, you know, material driven, this high production image. How do you stay confident in your approach?
I stay confident because I've tried it. You know, I've tried to make music, like I said earlier in this, you know, this interview. I've tried to make music that wasn't fully honest, you know. Here's the ironic part, right? People would listen to, and this used to frustrate me so much back in the day. People would listen to my old music, or obviously it wasn't old at the time. They would listen to the music that I made, and they would say something along the lines of, "Bro, come on, you don't do that. That's not real. You've never had this many women. You've never had this much money," and so on and so forth, right? They would dissect all these lies within the song because they felt like they knew me, you know? So it's ironic because now I make the truth and it's like, oh, we don't want to listen to that. That's reopening old wounds. You know, it feels like there's a higher power that's telling me I should not take the path of portraying myself as somebody that I'm not. Right. Because I did that for so long and it got me nowhere. And I will say that while I'm nowhere near where I want to be, I am certainly further than I was when I took the old route of lying.
Okay, so
can you talk about what that actually looked like, the living a lie part, like on a day to day? Like, what did it look like in your music, in your day to day
Man,
life?
you're gonna
Like,
take me back.
yeah, what did that look like? In music, it looked like copying other artists, like just straight up. I'll be honest with you. Even remixing their songs so that my voice was on it and people would actually give it a shot.
Right.
It also looked like, talking about, like I said, talking about situations that either weren't true or that I wished were true.
Mm-hmm.
But in my day to day life, what it looks like, or what it looked like at the time, it was like making myself the butt of the joke for other people's entertainment, or making other people the butt of the joke for other people's entertainment.
Right.
Like whatever worked in order to validate my worth, right? Because deep down, I hated myself, and
Right.
I did not know how to love myself. So I didn't know another way to be. Okay, so now that you're living more authentically, do you still feel like any lingering effects from that time period of your life? Or like, how does the old inauthentic self still show up in your life today? Or like, does he show up at all? But my inauthentic self does not show up in person like very much these days. I still have this bad habit of making jokes when I don't necessarily need to or want to, for that matter. But this was like a nearly 2-decade old habit, right? Like, and I'm trying to break it, but I'm human, so I'm gonna make mistakes. While my authentic self might not show up in person very much, I live with the repercussions of my inauthentic actions every single day.
I think you meant inauthentic.
There are things that I said when I was completely blacked out, drunk, out of my mind, don't remember anything, that people will remember forever, and they will never speak to me again because of those things that I said.
Right.
No, there are jokes that I made with the intention of making people laugh and feel good that made people feel like I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want this person in my life,
Right.
And they will never speak to me again because of that. Those people probably see my face on Instagram or wherever, and they either avoid it or go out of their way. This is the one that bugs me. They'll go out of their way to influence people that I'm still that person, And honestly, I don't blame them for that. I don't. I can't blame anybody because it's my fault.
Right.
All of that is my fault. The only time I get mad at this is when, like, somebody who knows me, someone who's close to me, like to this day, modern day, they know that I've changed. They know that I've turned my life around. They know I'm a completely different person, but that person, they choose to treat me like I'm still the person I used to be, or they try to influence other people that I'm still that person that I used to be. It's their right to be upset with me over something I did 7 or 8 years ago at this point. But if you know me today, you can have a conversation with me, and I will own up and apologize for things that I did wrong. I had somebody call me about their vocals being on this album, and I said, you know what? There's no need to apologize. I understand where you're coming from, and I agree. I will listen to anybody, but these people that I'm talking about, they will manipulate the situation in order to paint me to be this monster because they know they can. They know it will be easy to believe when they pin things on me, because people are going to roll with it without asking me, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Is this true? No one asked me if fucking shit is true. So that's how you end up getting songs like I put on the album where I address people aggressively because, all right, if you don't want to call me and ask, if you don't want to get my thoughts on the situation, this is where I got to put it. Wow. Don't call me now because you're upset about it. So, so then knowing that people only see the old you, how does that...
Sorry about that.
It's all good. How does that impact the way you form new connections or rebuild old ones? Are you more guarded when you meet people now? Like, are you upfront about your past? Like, how do you do it these days? It's almost like you know me, bro. It's almost like you know me.
I kind of know you a little bit. I would like to think so.
The honest answer is I don't build new connections outside of, like, people I make music with, and I respect those people a lot. Guys like Jordan Kyle, Zay, 30 Wonder. I can go on, but outside of that, I don't make new friends. I'm not opposed to making new friends, but like at this age, at 30, with the kind of personality I have, I just don't see it happening. I also here's the reason I say that. I don't I don't believe or try to make passive friendships. You know, I just don't believe in that.
Yeah.
If I'm calling you my friend, then I'm saying that I trust you. I'm saying that I will do anything for you within reason, of course.
Mm.
I have loyalty towards you if you're my friend. I
Right.
just can't see me meeting someone new like at my age that I can trust to that degree.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not going to tell you that when it in regards to being guarded. I'm not going to tell you that I'm more guarded. Actually, if anything,
Right.
it's the opposite. You know, I am way more open and honest about the way I look at things. You know,
Right.
because to me, it's like if you don't like my personality, then
Mm.
that's fine, and I respect that. I would much rather somebody choose to not associate themselves with me because of who I am right out the gate,
Right.
as opposed to I built a 5, 10, 15, 20-year relationship and memories with you,
Yeah.
and now you suddenly have never liked my personality.
Wow.
That sucks, you know?
Yeah.
With all that being said, I proudly have one group of friends
Okay.
that I hold on to with everything that I have, you know? I love those guys to death.
Mm.
To death. They have my undying loyalty because
Okay.
they understand me.
Okay.
I would do anything for them. Again, within reason. You know, they're my brothers. Okay, so in a world where so many people bond over like small talk and like casual acquaintances, do you ever feel like isolated, or is it like liberating to have fewer, deeper connections now that you have like a tight circle? It sounds like you're proud of having a smaller circle.
Um.
I feel. I hope no one gets offended by this. I feel isolated all the time, but again, that's nobody's fault but my own. You know, I would also say that isolation isn't a bad thing. I used to think it was a bad thing, but I changed my perspective on isolation because isolation forces you to talk to yourself,
Right.
just like we're doing right now, right?
We are talking to ourselves. I'm talking
But
to you.
it
You're
also
talking to me.
forces you to reflect on life. You know,
Mm.
it allows me to think about my own actions and what I did to get here. Because when you concentrate and reflect that much,
Right.
you can plan ahead to avoid the same mistakes. You know,
Okay.
is it a lonely life?
Right.
Kind of, you know.
It
Yes,
sounds like it.
if I'm being honest. But as long as I have my close friends, my wife, my family, it's not as lonely as I make it seem, especially as I make it sound on albums
Right.
from time to time. So, but in a world that seems like so like focused on networking, how do you reconcile your comfort with having like deeper connections? Like, do you ever feel pressured to engage more socially, or like, do you worry that you're missing out on new opportunities from like, choosing the path that you're on now? I do. I do worry
Okay.
about missing out on new opportunities and experiences, and that's how you end up getting a song like "Good Times Die" off the album. You know,
Right.
"Good Times Die."
Mm.
Which is one of my favorite songs, by the way. You know,
Mine
because
too.
when you're married, this is
Mm.
why I say that. When you're married, you no longer think about yourself, or if you're a good partner, you should not only think about yourself. You have to think about your partner.
Right.
You and your partner. You're a team. You know, you have to ask yourself, how can my actions and my mindset shape my partner's life? You know,
Right.
I don't want to keep my wife from new experiences and going places
Right.
just because I'm jaded from the past.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not from anyone else's fault but my own. I can't, I refuse to do that to her.
Right.
It's not a life that's worth living, you know.
Mm.
Like I said, I make it sound very lonely and depressing, but I socialize every single day. I have to for work. My 9 to 5 job, as some people would call it, but it's more of a 24/7 job. But anyway, you know, I make it seem like I don't know how to socialize. I do. I
Yeah.
do. I just like I'm not a fan of being inauthentic or like you said earlier, small talk.
Right.
I don't do that. You know, I
Okay.
like to ask personal or even ridiculous questions sometimes. Show me who you are.
Right.
So then looking ahead, how do you plan to embrace new experiences, like both personally and with your wife, like without compromising your authenticity that you've been talking about, that you've worked so hard to reclaim? Like, how do you do that? The way I do that is by not relying solely on myself. It would be a slap. It would be a slap in the face to my wife to not follow her lead sometimes when it comes to new experiences and social settings. Like, I have to trust her. I have to trust her and her guidance because life does not revolve around the way I think, right? I also have to learn from her, you know, which I've done quite often since we've been dating. You know,
Right.
there is a way to socialize and not be fake. There is a way to be yourself and not be like outlandish and arrogant. You know, I'm
Right.
not perfect by any means. I'm still working on
Mm-hmm.
fixing those old habits, but
I'm always willing to learn. I constantly ask for feedback. Yeah,
Man,
so that's how I do it.
your wife sounds like an anchor, man. That kind of partnership is rare. What's the most important lesson that she's taught you about like navigating relationships, whether it's with her, your friends, or even yourself? Like she's sounds
The
amazing.
most important lesson.
Yeah.
Consideration.
Okay. Consideration.
That's it. Yeah, consideration. You got to be considerate of other people. You know, again, despite what people might think, I am always thinking. I'm always asking myself, how would my actions affect other people?
Right.
Specifically the ones I love. You know, for a long time,
Mm.
I was this is who I was. I was the kind of guy that I would write a list of things that I needed to get from Target. I would go to Target, I would get those things, I would walk out.
Target.
Because like I have a lot of things that I needed to get done, right?
Right.
Not because I'm trying to be selfish, I just have things to do. Now, again, because of my wife, I have learned that it's probably best, not even probably best, it's just a good thing to do to ask my wife or somebody that I'm on the way to see if they need anything from Target if I'm at Target, right?
Right.
When you take other people into consideration, you're
Yeah.
not only building like a better relationship, you just start to feel better about yourself. You start living a better life. It's just a better way to live, in my opinion.
So that honestly, that's a simple but a powerful takeaway. I want to close this out. When people listen to Birthday Boy Volume 30, what's one thing you hope they walk away with about who you are and what you stand for? Or even if they hear your story, what do you want them to walk away with?
It's me, bro. You know me.
Yeah.
I can't just give you one thing.
I do know
there's so
you.
many things that I hope people walk away with for themselves when it comes to me or when it comes to this album. Not even this album. No, when it comes to me.
Right.
What I want anybody and everybody to know, whether you're a stranger or someone who knows me personally or someone who used to know me personally.
Right.
I want you to know this one thing, if you're forcing me to one thing. I am resilient. Hate me for it if you want. I understand. But I will not now or ever give up on my dreams. And if I fail, then I fail. But I fail with respect. There is nobody on this planet that will get between me and the life that I and my wife are working so fucking hard for.
Right.
This is bigger than just me. Anybody who gets in my way, intentionally gets in my way, you will be addressed. You cannot claim victory over me until I am dead.
Right.
I will not stop growing until I am dead.
Talk to him. Talk to him.
I'm done letting other people's opinions shape the way I am, shape the way I move,
Hell yeah.
and the way I think about myself.
Hell yeah.
But above all else, what I want people to take away is stay nasty.
Stay nasty. Resilient. I like that. It sums up everything that we shared today. You know, thank you for sharing your journey or our journey, our insights, and our vulnerability. Remember, here's to staying resilient. Here's to staying nasty. When you think nobody's listening, somebody is.